Hi everyone, it's Gigabeef here. Today we're going to be discussing the importance of insurance, how it works, tips and tricks to utilise it in creative ways, and some aspects to watch out for. Insurance is actually really important in Tarkov, and there's some useful stuff that beginners and even intermediate players might not know. So stick around and let's get going. Alright, so the insurance system doesn't quite work how someone brand new to the game might think that it does, or it's certainly not how I imagined it would when I first started. To put it simply, any items that are insured that are brought into a raid are returned after a delay, so long as they are not removed from the raid itself by the time the server timer hits 0. Both PMCs and player scavs can remove equipment from down players in raid and take them back to their own stash, and if they do so, the items are lost to their original owner. If this doesn't happen, you get your insured kit back. The first important takeaway from this is that if you die to AI scavs, you're quite likely to get your stuff back. For you to lose it, another PMC or player scav would need to happen upon your unfortunate end, take your gear, and then leave with it. This is fairly map dependent, as on factory for example, you're much more likely to get tomb raided than out in the middle of woods after taking a mistimed scav buckshot to the face. Despite the improvements in the recently updated scav AI behaviour that allows them to loot and carry around player items, because they never actually extract, it's not possible to lose your stuff to them directly. Other players can find your items and use them, carry them around and shoot at other people with them, but if they die before getting to the extract or decide to drop your items in favour of other items, you'll still get them returned. The second point is that, given your stuff has to be taken by another player, this naturally benefits newer and inexperienced players, as your equipment is more likely to be passed over than modded out M4s and high tier armour. This is a nice piece of natural game design, which helps those who are more likely to struggle when cash is tight and the game feels super hard at the beginning. Before we move on to the more advanced tips, let's just quickly cover how to actually insure your gizmos, what it costs, and importantly, how often you need to get it back to make it worthwhile. You can technically insure in the stash screen, but it's much more common to insure as part of getting ready to enter a raid. The second to last screen is the insurance screen, and here you can either choose to insure with Prapor or Therapist, and then you can either click on individual items to insure, or press Insure All up here. Once you have everything selected, you need to go down and press Insure at the bottom, otherwise it doesn't do anything. Items that have been insured appear with a golden box around them. This will be important later. Up until very recently, personally, I've always selected the individual items, as if you press Insure All, it selects everything, including all the items in your secure container, as well as your melee weapon slot, neither of which technically need insuring, as you don't lose them when you die. This can be quite a hit to your cash early on in the game, as some keys can be quite expensive. However, later on, it might be worth just paying the one-off fee to make your life easier, as then all you have to do is click Insure All and know that everything's been insured no matter what. I have also heard of bugs where you can potentially lose your melee weapon, and people have got them back on insurance, or sometimes that quick moment where you take your docs case out to move stuff around and get one-tapped, losing all your uninsured keys in the case itself. One other point to bear in mind is that if you have insured a gun before and you change the scope, or any other mod for that matter, it will show up as the gun being insured, but if you go into the detailed view, you can see that the scope is not. This can be quite costly and is one of the most routine reasons to use Insure All, to prevent accidentally not insuring that Valde or Elcan by mistake before going into a raid. 5 seconds before we continue, please don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. Alright, let's carry on. Insurance itself is a one-off payment that you make, which stays on the items until they are lost, i.e. as long as you survive, your items keep their insured status across multiple raids. At this point you might ask, Prapor or Therapist, and does it make a difference? There are 3 factors as to why we should choose one or the other, which are cost, return time, and expiry. Cost is usually the most important, and is the primary reason why the majority of players should insure with Prapor. He is roughly half the price of the equivalent insurance from Therapist, but this is only one element. In terms of when you get your items back, Therapist is speedier at returning them, so you will get them in 12 to 24 hours versus Prapor's 24 to 36. This can be slightly reduced with the hideout upgrades, however the game changer for certain players who don't play every day is that Therapist keeps your items for 144 hours, which is 6 days, whereas Prapor will black market off your stuff after 73, which is just over 3 days. Remember that if you don't collect your items within the time limit, they expire and disappear completely. The reason for this is to prevent players from using the trader insurance as extra storage space outside of their ordinary stash. It's possible to imagine people going into a raid with a bunch of things, dropping them off the side of the map into the river on shoreline for example, then getting them back on insurance and leaving them there for days or weeks. Anyway, this is potentially highly valuable for players who don't want to log in every day or two just to collect insurance. If that sounds like you, consider insuring with therapist for the time extension. The actual cost of insurance depends on the item, but is roughly around 6% of the trader sale price for Prapor and about 12% for therapist, and varies by a percent or two based on the item itself. I did a quick comparison of a few items, which all came to around the same figures. This means though that if you insure with Prapor, you only need to get your stuff back 1 in every 16 raids to break even, and about 1 in every 8 for therapist. Given anything can happen in a raid, such as getting killed by scavs where you have a high chance of getting it back, or a PMC kills you and takes your stuff but then later gets killed by someone else at long range who doesn't have time to loot or sometimes can't even find the body. With only a 1 in 16 rate needed, I think it's basically a no-brainer to insure everything that you bring in every raid. This is especially true with low-level gear, as discussed previously. There are 2 main exceptions to insurance that are worth bearing in mind. Firstly, on the map Labs, insurance doesn't work at all. The insurance screen lets you insure as normal, but anything lost there will not come back, as the trader's goons can't go there to get your stuff. The second one which catches people out is when you go MIA or missing in action. This is when the timer runs out on the raid and you're still in and are unable to extract. For some reason when you do this, you don't get any of your insured items back at all. When you're into the last minute or 30 seconds left on the clock and you know you won't be able to extract, just dump all of your insured items onto the floor and you'll have them returned. At least you know no one else is going to pick them up. Unfortunately, any ammo, meds or other consumables that you brought in will be lost, as none of these items can be insured in the first place. Rounds in particular can be quite painful to lose when you're running higher level loadouts, as a few mags of the top tier ammo can easily be worth 100k or more. Next up, I want to talk about a few tricks that you can use to do some kind of unusual things with insurance. The first one is insurance fraud. This helps you to optimize your loot by allowing you to discard parts of your own equipment in order to pick up more from other players. Imagine a situation where we've gone into a raid with a loadout and got 2 PMC kills. There's only a limited amount of space that you have for their stuff between the rigs and the armour and helmet. It can be quite difficult to take everything, especially if you only went in with a Burkut or a Scav backpack's worth of space to begin with. However, if their gear isn't too damaged and they have usable weapons, you can find somewhere to drop your own gun and armour that won't be easily found like a thick bush, and then use your 2 weapon slots, as well as the freed up helmet and armour slots to take half of the equipment. Then, using the bag space for whatever else you can carry, this allows a much greater amount of equipment to be taken, as if you hit it well, you'll be getting all of your own equipment back on insurance too. Another plus point to doing this is that even if you die to another player afterwards, because your own things that you hid are now nowhere near you, all you'll lose is the gear that you picked up from other players when you get looted. The next tip is about marking magazines. Some players would like the ability to mark different magazines that they are using with different ammo, so you know which is which in raid. If you hold down your reload button and use the scroll wheel, you can pick the magazine that you want to use. However, for some guns, all of the mags look very similar and don't really have any variety, so it's not possible to tell which has which if you've loaded them with different rounds. For example, some mags with scav killing ammo and some with PvP ammo. If you're using a gun with cheap mags, you can insure some and not others. This will appear in the mag select window when using the magazine picker, showing you which to reload depending on how you want the setup to be. Another similar use of the same trick for a completely different purpose is for the Ragman quest So It Good Part 1. This is a notorious quest, so if you're new to the game and you haven't done it yet, please remember this one. I hope by the time that you watch this video it's fixed, but as of posting, we're years into the game and it has never been prioritised. For this quest, you need to hand over a Find in Raid Pilgrim bag. You know, one of the big purple ones. The issue is, anything inside the bag gets taken, along with the bag itself. Given that players typically store their entire bag stack in their largest bag, and sometimes even keep things at the bottom like valuables, I think every experienced player at this stage knows at least one person who's had a tragic accident on this quest. If you have a couple of pilgrims, one or more of which are embedded in your bag stack, ensure the one that you take out which is empty. Then when the interface appears to hand over the item, you just choose the insured one. Very easy, if you know what to watch out for. So that's it for today. Remember to sub and hit the bell if you want to see more. You can also follow me on Twitter, and I stream on Twitch on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturday evenings UK time. Until then, I'll see you next time, and as always, have fun in your raids.